And with that, I would like to introduce somebody that we got to serve in October as Guiding Eyes for the Blind, Renard Francois, who has his guide dog, Chrissy. Renard is going to tell us about his journey with his guide dog and what it means to him. Renard has 2 sons, and the impact it has on the family as well is incredible. Being a father and a person with 4 kids, I can tell you that when you provide a guide dog to somebody, it's not just for that person, it's for their whole family. And I think that's the incredible thing about it. It really can change a person's life as well as change the entire community. So thank you very much. Renard, please come up to the stage.
All right. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be standing before you. So Thomas, John, Eli, Rebecca, I really appreciate the invitation for me and Chrissy. My name is Renard Francois, and this is Chrissy. We graduated together at the end of October, and one of the things that I want to do is, there's a theme of being short, to the point, person of action. I won't do that, but I won't bore you. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about kind of how I got here, why we chose Guiding Eyes. Maybe it's why Guiding Eyes chose me, and then the impact, and brag a little bit on Chrissy and tell you what it means to everybody involved. So I first lost my vision in my right eye when I was 14. And one of the things that you learn to do is just compensate. And so I learned how to compensate for lack of depth perception, where I could play sports. And I compensated throughout really all of my life to that point, whether it was high school, college, law school, you name it. I was able to drive. I was able to drive to prom. I was able to do all these things and kind of learned an independence that was really important to me and later on in my career. And then shortly at some point during COVID, I needed to have eye surgery on my good eye. And I went from, one of the risks that they tell you is that you could have diminished vision, you could have no vision, and if it's bad enough, sometimes they can say you can have an infection. So I actually had diminished vision. And so I found that I went from 20/35 in my left eye to hand movements. And it was a complete change in my life, because throughout that time I was able to see my wife on my wedding day, the birth of my 2 sons, was able to coach my oldest son in many of his sports. Unfortunately, I was able to see him play soccer, which not a good soccer player. And so, but it was a big change. And the dependence I learned was I took a week off and went back to work again and figured out, okay, how do I compensate and cope? How do I not freak out, but how do I figure it out? And it took me to get through the day using 5 different devices to just keep working. Because at that point, my responsibilities had expanded, and I was relatively new on the job and didn't feel that I could, I felt like I couldn't say I needed to take more time. Then at some point, we started going back to the office, and work was gracious enough to say, we'll provide a car for you, and which was great. But the commute ended up being like an hour and 45 minutes there. If I left at 5:45 in the morning, I would get out of the car, go up to the office, stay in the office until 5:30 for a 2-hour commute back home. And that was my life. I didn't go to my son's fencing tournaments. I ended up staying in the office and at home, and realized that life and opportunity was passing me by, until at one point a friend of mine said, maybe you should have a guide dog. You do really well with a cane, and maybe a guide dog would be great. And my wife said that, my boss said that, and I kind of looked at her and said, well, the dog I have right now, it kind of drinks from the toilet. So really, is that going to help me? But the more I realized how much independence I had lost and how comfortable I had become, and kind of seeing those things and missing out on going to meet friends and seeing my sons compete in athletic endeavors, I realized I needed to do something about that, and maybe a guide dog was it. And so my wife and I did a bunch of research on many guide dog schools, and I won't cast aspersions about other schools because they too are doing great work, but Guiding Eyes was really the only organization that took the time to understand who I was, who my family was. They came out and interviewed both me and my wife. They wanted to understand what I wanted to accomplish as a professional, as a person, a father and a husband, and tried to figure out where I worked, where I lived, and really tried to work with me. And it kind of came down to two groups, Guiding Eyes and another institution that shall not be named. And I remember having a frustrating call with the other institution saying, I've done the orientation to mobility, and here's my route. And they pulled it up on Google Maps. And I tried to explain to them, yeah, but walking through Grand Central is just not like walking through a building. It's chaotic and crazy, and going up Park Avenue or Lexington or going to Madison, it's a challenge. And the guide dog will get plenty of mental exercise, and they weren't believers. But Guiding Eyes was. And they said, we understand. We understand that people who work in New York City don't live in New York City. And sometimes they don't. And they sometimes live in places like Weston, Connecticut, where I live. And it's a completely different environment. So we are going to find a dog for you that is strong in the city and just as strong outside of the city. And that's how I got matched with Chrissy. But it was really the first institution to try and understand who I was and what I needed, as opposed to trying to put me into a box. And so that's why I really felt appreciative to Guiding Eyes. And when I then stepped on campus and saw the facilities and met the training staff and learned and met Chrissy for the first time, I understood that this was really a partnership, not just through the training, but also after the training. And so it has truly been that way. And I've also come to understand kind of the life cycle and the ecosystem that supports, that everybody does to produce someone like Chrissy. So I do want to brag about Chrissy because we've been working for 7 months, and she's phenomenal. She really is. And so she has already in 7 months picked up my pattern. And so our pattern when we go into the office, she knows that we're going to the Westport train station. She rides in the car, we get out, up 2 flights, on the platform, on the train, into Grand Central. Usually it's platform 13, up 2 steps, turn to the left, double doors, left on Lexington, over 45th, halfway up the block, she starts to turn for the side door. There you go. And then up 2 more flights of steps, through the security guard station, up the escalator, 2 double doors, wind to the office. And I literally almost she can do that literally without a command. And when I take her out for parking to use a bathroom in the middle of the day or at the end of the day, she knows exactly where she's going. And we go back to 45th Street, and she knows how to get there with very few commands. On the way back, she knows when we're going down to Grand Central, we take usually the lower platform trains. She can guide me through the mass of humanity that is Grand Central, and then starts angling to the left to get to the steps going down. And so she has been a phenomenal, smart, tremendous dog with a great personality. Everybody loves her, right? And so at work, there's a picture of her on my outer door because people will come by when we're in meetings, sometimes out of the office. They're disappointed that Chrissy's not there. So they put a picture. Like, people will come to my office and pretend like they want to talk to me, but they really want to see Chrissy. I found out they're going to throw a birthday party for her in July, even though I'm going to be on vacation. They said, oh, we'll just move it up a week. And so everybody loves Chrissy, and including our 2 dogs at home, including our family. But what she has given me is, when I take a step back and I think about it, it is just the small things. right? Being able to go on the subway or on the Metro North and ride a few stops with my oldest son who goes to a magnet school in Norwalk. That's been great. Being able to go to City Winery and Grand Central Station to meet several friends to the point where she really knows her way through the tables to find the table that's the most convenient for us. I've been able to do that. I've been able to meet friends for lunch and coffee during the workday. I've been able to attend fencing tournaments where there's lots of swords, lots of beeping, lots of screaming, kids running around, and she navigates me through that without incident. And those tournaments are always different. And so she's smart. She's trained me pretty well, and she's really given me the opportunity to be more independent. And maybe I don't think so, but I know that my wife certainly says that I have more confidence, I walk with more confidence, and I'm certainly more outgoing than I used to be. So she has given me that back to the point where one of my sons who was competing in a tournament, supposed to compete in Utah, asked me to join him at the tournament. And he said, and remember, you need to bring Chrissy too. And so it's been really life-changing. And what I realize is it's your generosity. It's the generosity and kindness and dedication of all of the staff who were there. The puppy raisers. I've met so many puppy raisers just walking with Chrissy in the mall who are probably not here, maybe never heard of, but they do that out of the kindness of their heart. And one of those puppies out there is going to be navigating somebody through Grand Central. And it's all thanks. It starts here with your kindness and generosity and flows right through to these extremely incredible facilities and a really dedicated staff. So on behalf of my family, people at work, I want to thank you for everything that you've done, because I didn't think it would be such a significant change. And I didn't think that this 60-pound furry dog would be so meaningful and have such an impact on me, not just professionally, but personally, in such a short period of time. We're going to test her in July when we go on our first plane ride to end up going on an Alaskan cruise. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you very much.